Welcome, students. In this session, I would like to deliver a lecture on literature and culture. Literature and culture are two inseparable issues. When we talk about the culture, the literature can also appear in unconsciously because the culture is composed of thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and the styles and personal ways of society, which, as a general rule, can appear in terms of principles and respectful rules. The literature, on the other hand, discloses and transmits these concepts to other generations, and these relationships exist from the beginning of history until now. So, literature and culture. Many theoretical approaches to literary studies assumes that the relationship between literature and culture is an important one in the sense that literature both reflects and is a means of reflecting on the culture in which it is produced. So let's focus on the term culture. Culture is contested phenomena which is understood to mean different things by different groups. It is the integrated pattern of human knowledge, beliefs, and behavior. Culture embodies language, ideas, beliefs, customs, taboos, codes, institutions, tools, techniques, and works of art, and so on. Culture consists of shared values, beliefs, knowledge, skills, and practices that underpin behavior by members of a social group at a particular point in time. It is creative expression, skills, traditional knowledge, and resources. These include craft and design, oral and written history and literature, music, drama, dance, visual arts, celebrations, indigenous knowledge of botanical properties and medicinal applications, architectural forms, historical science, and traditional technologies, traditional healing method, traditional natural resource management, and patterns of social interaction that contribute to group and individual welfare and identity. It is generally accepted that culture embodies the way humans live with and treat others and how they develop or react to changes in their environments. That is to say, culture is a broad concept that embraces all the aspects of the human life. It includes everything humans do or learn to do as members of society, and it shapes our thoughts and actions and often does so with a heavy hand. Furthermore, culture has several meanings and definitions, but the major importance to both teachers and learners, where culture is defined as everything in human life, it is called culture, where culture is the best in human life restricted to the um, a particular group and so called culture. According to its complex nature, uh, it defines culture as a shape in meaning term, and it has not one stable definition. It can mean different things to different people and in a different context. So it defined it by saying that culture is connected to people with formal education and high social status, like those who attend TV shows with a high cultural format, like um, many examples. The other side, uh, some people reduce the meaning of the word culture to food, holidays, and lifestyles. However, it is not restricted and limited to these meanings because culture is a combination of beliefs, customs, shared values, as well as history, geography, religion, and even language that a specific group of people in society share. There are many scholars who had defined the term culture. Um, the social knowledge that unconsciously acquired by a group of individuals in the same society where they share the same ideas, beliefs, and even their way of life. In the same way, uh, it deal with forms of speech acts, rhetorical structures of discourses, society rules and conventions and knowledge constructs. Moreover, culture is highly required and important in our daily life because of its big vitality and importance to understand the world's view of life. So, in general, culture is uh, not an issue to answer. It is a vast and deep sea according to the scene and the angle that we want to define culture through it. However, um, uh, due to our previous readings and researches, we can define it as a framework of beliefs, expressive symbols, and values in terms of which both individuals and the groups define and express their judgments and feelings in a democratic and a free way. Next, definition of literature. Literature is understood in multiple way. It is a body of written and oral works like novels, poetry, or drama that use words to stimulate the imagination of the reader and provide him with a unique vision of life. The underlying assumptions here is that literature is a creative work, global form of expression that addresses the spiritual, emotional, and intellectual human concerns. However, this idea is from the 14th century. In the 18th century, literature was viewed as well written books of an imaginative or a creative kind. Good literature is believed to demonstrate artistry and to have the power to raise questions and debates. It provides new points of view and let the reader expand his understanding to himself and to the whole world and even refresh his spirit. In addition, literature is any factual, imaginative, and creative work about people's life and what they have done in their lives as an achievement, what they have believed and what they have created or have thought to create. Moreover, literature is a multitude of works that are written in books, newspapers, or articles, spoken, acted, filmed, sung, or drawn as a cartoons on television. It should not portray one view about the human life. For instance, only the positive side of their life. Literature should portray different and real visions to the human life, whether it was positive or negative, because this implies a balanced and a viable representations of the human life, realities, and existence. Furthermore, literature can be lived through different varieties of media: audio, audiovisual, oral, and so on. It is an expression of culture because it conveys the human knowledge, beliefs, and behaviors. After we defined literature as an art and as something creative, it is vital define it in a linguistic method. Any method or approach towards using literature in the classroom must take as a starting point the question, what is literature? So, many authors critics, and linguistics have puzzled over what literature is. One broader explanation of literature says that literary texts are products that reflect different aspects of society. They are cultural documents which offer a deeper understanding of a country or countries. For us, we can define it using different perspectives, but it keep it in the same vein. Literature simply means anything that is written, timetables, dialogues, textbooks, magazines, articles, and so on. For instance, if you want to buy a car or a washing machine, you will probably want to see the literature about it. If you are a doctor and you are going to do a specific surgery to a person, you will certainly see the literature about the surgery. Even in advertisements and marketing, because you will not buy a product without having an idea about its literature. Furthermore, we can divide literature and this large mass of materials into two groups: informative literature and imaginative literature. Informative literature basically deals with the informations, facts, explanations, history, etc. It tells us about the real world. For instance, a biography about a famous person like the Prophet Muhammad or Nelson Mandela, its main purpose is to give an idea and to offer knowledge to the reader. In the other hand, imaginative literature uh, aims to arouse thoughts, imaginations, and even feelings. Its author expresses uh, ideas and feelings in an artistic way. He would not convey facts, but he basically tried to communicate with the reader by his emotions and feelings in a real artistic way and for the sake of the art in general. So, the phenomena of language and culture are deeply related by many ways. Language surely is determined by culture, and culture, of course, is determined by language, of course. This is based on the replicators that created both. So, we obviously can claim that language and culture are bonded together by way or by another. Culture determines language, words determine thought. Starting from this point, and the saying of uh, words are the tombs of meanings, one of the anthropologists, Paul Valery, he viewed that language and its entire structures were entirely depend upon the cultural context in which they exist. This was a logical extension of what is termed the standard social science model, which sees the human mind is an indefinitely easily managed structure that is capable of grasping and absorbing any sort of culture without force of genetic factors. In the same vein, um, many scholars, um, uh, one of the great anthropologist Ray made an interesting study by giving color samples to different American Indians tribes and asking them to give the names of the colors. As a consequences of this experiment, he concluded that the spectrum we know as green, red, etc. was an arbitrary divisions, and each culture divide the spectrum separately. Thus, the divisions seen between colors are a consequence of the language that they learn and do not base on divisions in the natural words. Moreover, a similar study been upheld um, to Eskimo words for snow, where they have almost more than 12 different terms for snow, which is not many more than English speakers and should be expected since they live in cold climate. Surely, uh, there are ways in which culture does really determine language. Obviously, the ancient Egyptians did not have words and names for televisions, aeroplanes, and phones or laptops because simply they were not a part of their culture. Also, uncivilized tribes in Latin America did not have knowledge to certain Roman laws, such tribunes, because simply it was not part of their cultural context. So, language as a part of culture. Language is not just a medium for showing and introducing culture, but it is surely a part of culture, and this is quite spread between immigrants in foreign countries where they tend to speak their first language between each other, even if they feel comfortable using the foreign country's language, because they always tend to preserve their own legacy, which includes customs, traditions, and even language. Linguistic differences are also seen as the mark of another culture and may create um, uh, um, a difference um, between the people. For instance, an issue is rising in America as speakers of standard American English, which spoken by the whites and the educated category, observe the growing number of speakers of Black English colloquial. Such issue raised a debate of the necessity of teaching Black English language in schools as soon as it reflects a part of their Black culture. So, generally, we can claim that language and culture are related in the way they affect each other. That is to say, language and culture are two different sides for the same coin and they both embody each other. Relationship between literature and culture. For centuries, people have felt the need to express their opinion on things and events happening around them and to them. The necessity to demonstrate and locate their own position in the temporal dimensions naturally, it's lead to the process of documenting these events in various forms and by various media such as imaginative literature, where it proved to be one of the most vital tools to reflect the happenings around us. Moreover, literature is seen as a reflection of culture and society, portraying people's ideas and dreams set in certain time and space frameworks in the most creative and imaginary way. It both depicts and inspires social changes and it is often treated as a um, uh, it is a credible source of culture representation. So, literature and culture are deeply interrelated and both have a strong relationship with each other because during years and from the oldest of time, literature embodied culture. The first literary work in English language that conveys cultural context about life is written in Old English, which appeared in the early Middle Age. And here we mean Beowulf from Anglo Saxon literature, which is a heroic epic poem. Usually, many writers would like to write about heroine epic poem or stories in the Old English, telling the story of how the heroes destroy the evil and restored their glories. In the poem of Beowulf, the hero Beowulf himself had to face many battles against the devils called Grendel. Uh, Generally, this poem of Beowulf in Old English literature displays the actual history of ancient Old English period in which the heroes went to campaigns fighting against the devils or bad things and finally they returned home with glories. In the 12th century, the new form of English known as Middle English evolved, which started the Middle English literature. There were three main categories of Middle English literature: religious, courtly love, and Arthurian. Moreover, The literature written in England during the Middle English period reflects fairly accurately the changing fortunes of English. So, French language was best understood by the upper classes. The books they read or listened to were in French. The most significant Middle English writer was Geoffrey Chaucer, who was also called as the father of English literature and was widely considered as the great English poet of the Middle Ages, and wrote the Canterbury Tales, a collection of stories in a frame story between 1387 to 1400, giving the general prologue a matchless portrait gallery of contemporary types and constituting in the variety of the tales a veritable anthology of medieval literature. So later, um, uh, in 1476, William Caxton introduced a printing press into England, which flourished the Renaissance literature such as poetry, drama, and prose. Furthermore, English literature was spread by various writers in the early modern period of England, such as William Shakespeare, who wrote Hamlet. Despite there were various writers of English literature. The works of William Shakespeare influence throughout the English speaking world, where this play conveyed many political issues between nations that took place in Europe in that era. And this was a part of culture about that era, which is presented in a piece of literature. So, in conclusion, literature stands as a voice that expresses values and beliefs and shows how people live as individual or as group with this perspective, and how their cultural life was and how their culture and traditions used to be. Literature becomes the ideal tool to show the learners the English speaking world and to lead them to discover English culture. It gives a great opportunity for the learners to increase their world knowledge, as they will have access to variety of context and which is undoubtedly related to the target culture. By developing a literary knowledge of the English language, learners will also understand and interact effectively with the English people. They acquire effective linguistic and cultural competence, because the study of the target language is bound to its literature and fine arts. Thank you for listening.